So Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 10th shloka. I'm reading the shlokam. Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
वीतराग भय क्रोधा
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
वीतराग भय क्रोधा
Manmaya mam upashritah.
मन्मया माम उपाश्रितः
Manmaya mam upashritah.
मन्मया माम उपाश्रितः
Bahavo gnanatapasa.
बहवो ज्ञान तपसा
Bahavo gnanatapasa.
बहवो ज्ञान तपसा
Puta madbhavam agataha.
भूता मद्भावम् आगतः
Puta madbhavam agataha.
भूता मद्भावम् आगतः.
Yeah. Who wants to try again?
Satish, go ahead.
Again, huh?
Hmm.
वीतराग भय क्रोध
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
मन्मया माम उपाश्रितः
Manmaya mam upashritah.
बहवो ज्ञान तपसः
Bahavo gnanatapasa.
भूता मद्भावम् आगतः
Puta madbhavam agataha. Okay, good. Anand, you want to try again?
Yeah. Vitaraga bhaya krodha
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
manmaya mamupashritah
Manmaya mam upashritah.
bahavo jnana tapasa
Bahavo gnanatapasa.
Putamad bhavamagatah
Puta madbhavam
आगतः
agataha. Nice. Okay, synonyms. Vita, freed from. Raga, attachment. Bhaya, fear. Krodha, and anger. Mat mayah, fully in me. Mam, in me. Upasritaha, being fully situated. Bahava, many. Jnana, of knowledge. Tapasa, by the penance. Putaha, being purified. Mat bhavam, transcendental love for me. Agataha, attained. Translation: being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me. Many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. Yeah, Puppet, who wants to read? Please go ahead.
निरंजन स्क्रीन ऊपर करना पॉपट का. ओके. बहुत ऊपर चला गया.
Okay?
क्या okay?
Yeah, perfect.
As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the supreme absolute truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the supreme can be a person. Such materialists cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge, and eternally blissful. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep the same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the supreme to be impersonal. And because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again. And so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence, attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all. Being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation, they become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Such people are in a diseased condition of life. Sorry. Some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. Some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. This last class of men take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their affective hallucinations are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. One has to get rid of all three stages of material consciousness: attachment to material life, fear of a spiritual personal identity, and the conception of void that arises from frustration in life. To get free from these three stages of the material concept of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord, guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and follow the disciplines and regulative principles of devotional life. The last stage of the devotional life is called bhava, or transcendental love of Godhead. According to Bhakti Rasamartha Sindhu 1.4.15 16, the science of devotional service. Adau Sraddha Tatah Sadhu Sango Tha Bhajana Kriya Tato Nartha Nivrit Syat Tato Nishta Rushis Tatah Ashta Saktis
No,
Tato
Atasakti.
Ata Shaktis Tato Bhavas Tata Premabhyutan Shati Sada Sada Kanam Ayam Premna Pradur Bhave Bhavat Kramaha. In the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachment, attains steadiness in self realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love for God is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. In the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, by the slow process of devotional service, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustrations that result in void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord.
Niranjan, over to you.
Yeah. Okay, Anand. Thank you. So I'll try to share my comments about this important shloka. So this shloka of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4 and 10th shloka. Chapter 4 talks about an
Chapter 10
important
Sloka.
aspect of our life. And chapter 4 is talking about transcendental knowledge. Now, this I'm talking in English, but literally, when we see the name, the title of this chapter, which is the fourth chapter, it talks, the title of this chapter is called as the Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. It is called as the Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. So in this chapter, Bhagavan is giving us the the technique of freeing ourselves from the bondage, and the technique of this is to acquire jnana, is to perform karma, and to free ourselves with sannyasa in the form of a yoga. This is what is the summary in English. If we are putting it, we are calling it as the transcendental knowledge. So this particular shloka, which is the 10th shloka, is confirming once again with the Bhagavan's assurance of what is this technique which many people have followed, not just in one time, but time immemorial. Many people in the past have performed such kind of an actions through which they have attained the ultimate Parabrahman. So here Bhagavan is setting the goals to every individual very clearly. He is suggesting, he is pointing very clearly without any doubts what is the goal of every individual who has to achieve in his due course of lifetime. And what is that goal? That goal is number one, is to purify oneself, is to purify oneself. And he's also telling how does one purify himself. One purifies himself through these three activities, which are related to jnana, which is related to karma, and which is related to sannyasa in the form of a yoga. With these three techniques, with these three tools, one is able to purify oneself. Now, when we are talking about purification, what is this purification from? It means to say that when we are born in this materialistic world or in this mundane world, we are naturally associated with all types of raga dveshas. We have different types of raga, means desires. By nature, we have got different types of desires. Dvesha, because of the desire, when we achieve it, we have certain kind of ego coming in us, and when we don't achieve it, there is a kind of a anger that is naturally being cropped in. So this particular thing of a raga dvesha is creating a kind of a material bondage. But Bhagwan is confirming that in time immemorial, many people have gained the purification process by way of following these tools and techniques. Number one, the tool is to acquire the right jnana, the right knowledge, the right wisdom. The process for gaining this knowledge is through following or surrendering to a bona fide guru. Under his guidance, we follow our karma, our actions, our activities, each and every activity that we are performing under the particular process. The moment we follow through these processes, we gain a stage of sannyasa. Sannyasa doesn't mean to say that we leave everything in this world and go into the forest and be there mukumuti muskoni. We want to close our eyes, nose, ears, and then do kind of penance or something like that. No, Bhagavad Gita doesn't talk about it. It says that sannyasa means the ability to have a detachable attachment. You are having a complete detachment with the results of your actions. While you're performing the actions as a service, as a surrender to the Bhagwan, for doing his works as an instrument without getting any kind of a results, ownership of the results to oneself. That is sannyasa yoga. That is sannyasa. One becomes totally detached from the results of the actions he is performing. Every action, every knowledge he is gaining, every action he is performing, he performs as a service to the Bhagwan, as an instrument of his Leela, of his pastimes. He does every action, whether it is in his personal life or it could be in his professional life. He might be doing it to gain good health, for example. But for example, if you take an example of any person, it could be that there is a discomfort which he is experiencing as a disease. But if I go to a doctor and then say, I want to gain good health for myself, it is one way of looking at it. But if I go to the doctor and then I within myself pray to the Lord that please render good health for me such that I may be able to perform your activities, be your instrument, then you are totally detached and you have 100% surrendered yourself for the activities of the pure Parabrahman self. So that is one of the techniques for purifying oneself. So the important thing, what Bhagwan is giving as a goal, which every individual has to achieve for himself, for oneself, is to purify himself or herself. What is this purification process? Like we said, it is because of the raga and dvesha. So therefore, One needs to gain the knowledge of how these raga dvesha are coming. The core of this raga dvesha are coming is because of the attachment. Now, this attachment comes from various things. I might be attached to my family. I might be attached to my parents. I might be attached to my siblings, or I might be attached to my wife. I might be attached to my children. I might be attached to myself. The moment I am attached so much without having proper knowledge, then there is a fear of loss. Maybe I am afraid that what these people will say if I'm not performing so and so activity for them. Naturally, there is a fear which crops in. The fear of your own identity starts cropping in. I don't perform this activity for them, or I don't give this food for them, or I don't give a package of a salary back to them, or I don't give them money for so and so. Will they respect me? Will they treat me in the same way that I have been doing? Am I doing out of responsibility, or am I doing with a concern, or am I doing out of fear, or a combination thereof? In such kind of a scenarios, there is a confusion which crops in into the individual, and then there is a confusion, and then it leads to a frustration and anger thereof. When you're not able to perform and meet the expectation of the surroundings or the surrounding people around oneself in the personal life. Same is the case once you are at the professional level working. The same thing happens. We might be attached to a position, we might be attached to a company, we might be attached to a salary, or we might be attached to a name and fame and the luxuries that that particular position or a job is giving for one. That attachment is what creates a fear. What if I lose this job tomorrow? What would happen to me? How will people respond to me? Will they respect me? Will I be able to give the kind of resources to my family? Fear once again crops in, because of which you might like the job, you might not like the job, you might not appreciate the kind of working environments. You feel tired, you feel worked up, you feel frustrated, you feel anger. Again, the root cause: attachment, expectation. So those are the core things which one has to overcome. The root cause for this thing is attachment. We are not saying that you must not do your work, because this chapter, Bhagavad Gita, fourth chapter, talks about jnana karma sannyasa yoga. It tells you you have to perform your actions. It also guides you with the knowledge of detachment. It talks about the sannyasa yoga. Perform your actions with detachment. Give your 100% effort to see whatever work you're doing, maybe at your job or at your home or whatever work we are doing, do with 100% commitment. But don't be attached. Don't expect that your wife is going to do so and so thing for you, or your parents are going to respond so and so, or your daughters are going to give so and so, or your children are going to respond to you back. They have to give you this kind of a respect, or they have to, respond to you once you're old at so and so. No, that kind of an attachment cannot be there within us. We have to perform with pure love. As a love, you just offer yourself to that particular activity with 100% detachment. When you're able to perform, you perform. When you're not able to perform, say, I'm not able to do it. Very clearly, very confidently. Bhagwan will offer the purification process for our own purified self. That is the one method of purifying ourselves. Now, what would happen the moment something is pure? With this kind of a pure knowledge, naturally, one is able to see every other person with love and compassion. The core problem for everybody is this, that they have an attachment towards a belief system. I believe something, I want something, and the other person doesn't has a different belief system or has a different kind of an expectation from his belief system, and then there is a conflict. Because the moment I have a belief and I have a belief system, I get attached to that particular belief system. I get veiled. There is a veil. There is a kind of a curtain which is covering my divine knowledge. It is covering my pure self. It is like the dust on the mirror. It is like a dust on the mirror. This belief system is like a dust on the mirror. I'm not able to see it. My belief system, when it comes in conflict with the other person's belief system, then there is there is a difference of opinion automatically. Then there is this, my attachment to my belief system tells me that I am greater or my belief system is far better than your belief system, so please follow it. Or it will say, Are, I might, if I'm saying no to my belief system, you will start becoming afraid, or you might become confused, you will be bewildered, there will be a lot of turmoil within self. And this again creates a frustration and leads to anger, and then there is a conflict and a fight, both within self and with the other person or the other society or the world per se. So the root cause for this is my belief system. The root cause for this is my attachment to my belief system without having the pure jnana, without having the ability to work on the knowledge what I would have gained, without having the ability to be in a state of detachment while you're attached to certain activities. These qualities one has to develop in oneself, and this is possible only by the grace and guidance of a qualified guru, through specific processes, through specific practices. Whatever is those practices, whatever is that process which the guru would have identified, he would have experienced, he would have done it or performed in his life, and he is sharing with his disciples in the disciplinic succession. If we follow that process, whatever that process could be, it will help us in purifying our jnana. It helps in purifying our actions, karma. It helps in purifying the state of us being in the sannyasa state with detachment. Once we combine these three things into the form of a union, it is forming a beautiful, blissful yoga, which is called as the pure transcendental love. We start seeing everybody in that kind of a form, irrespective of my belief system or the other person's belief system, irrespective of my fears, my angers, or my attachments. I start loving the other person the way they are. We start accepting them the way they are. We start accepting them beautifully as the form of the Parabrahman himself in the other being. With this, we start becoming free, liberated, and then we attain the transcendental love of the Supreme Parabrahman in each and every animate and non-animate living entities in this Parabrahman, in this Brahmanda. This is a beautiful shloka where the Bhagavan is giving in this 4.10 a goal. He is giving us a goal and a technique of how to achieve that goal. The goal is to purify ourselves in our knowledge, in our wisdom, purify ourselves in our actions, purify ourselves with complete detachment, such that we are able to have universal love and compassion for all the beings, thereby being the right instrument of the Bhagavan in the Parabrahman consciousness. This Sloka 4.10 gives us this goal and technique. With this, I close my comment. Thank you. Any comments? We can go ahead.
Niranjan very rightly said.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's all about the entire thing says about detachment and how you experience detachment is by you clarified the concept of sannyasa means what, you know, not like you wear an orange dress and sit somewhere. It's not that. It's about practical orientation. Concentrate, focus on your work instead of thinking of what will it yield the desired result or not.
Mm, mm,
So by not doing that, you're experiencing detachment in a certain way.
mm.
That takes care of also. You have to do your duty.
That's right.
That's it. Duty is 100%.
That's right.
There's no dilution in that.
Mm, mm.
It comes with everywhere, parenting, looking after everybody, and how to see the divinity within ourselves and within, I mean, within ourselves and a person in front of us, X, Y,
Mm,
Z.
mm.
So it's why very important to see the divinity of a person. Now, if you cannot see the divinity of a person, if you're not divine.
That's right.
So by following this sloka, you see the person in its entirety.